Being a child star isn't easy, and sadly, a lot of them struggle even more as they grow up. Some don't even make it to adulthood, facing things like addiction, depression, or tragic accidents, like Anton Yelchin.
What did you expect when you heard there was a new Star Trek movie? And like, how was this version different from what you thought it would be?
Well, going in, I didn't know whether one would have to be well-versed in sort of Trekdom, I guess, I don't know. I think I just...
Trekdom. Oh, dude, you got a new word going.
Oh. Whether one had to know everything about Trek to really kind of enjoy the script or the film. And I read it, and it just read like a great adventure story.
You probably remember him as Pavel Chekhov from the Star Trek reboot movies, but that wasn't all he did. Anton had been acting since he was 11 and built quite an impressive career over the years. He wasn't just some one-hit wonder. He was consistently working and showing people just how talented he really was. That's why his death at only 27 hit so hard. It was tragic and honestly, kind of confusing. While his car was parked on a steep hill near his house, he stepped out, probably thinking nothing of it, when suddenly it rolled backward and pinned him to a brick post. The car he drove, a Jeep, was later recalled for a gearshift problem. But even though the company didn't want to say for sure that the malfunction caused his death, it raised a lot of questions. Either way, the accident was completely heartbreaking. He had 5 movies come out after he passed, which just shows how much more he had left to give. He was definitely on his way to something bigger. Number 9 is Heather O'Rourke. Her story feels straight out of a Hollywood fairy tale, except the ending is anything but magical.
And this guy came up to us, we didn't know who he was or anything, and he said, "Have you ever been in any movies?" And we said, "No," and we were not interested in talking to this stranger at all. We said, we just wanted to eat our lunch. So he said, "Well, can I just interview you for this part?" And we said, "Sure, why not?" It was for a 6-year-old, and I was only 5 at that time. And when we got in there...
Heather was just 5 years old, sitting down to eat with her family, when none other than Steven Spielberg spotted her and decided she was perfect for Poltergeist. That decision made her a household name and landed her one of the most famous lines in horror movie history. She stayed with the franchise through all 3 movies and even had a recurring role on Happy Days. But sadly, her life was cut short way too soon. She passed away at just 12 years old from cardiac arrest brought on by septic shock, a condition doctors failed to diagnose properly. It's such a tough loss because she had already accomplished so much at such a young age and seemed destined for even more. Number 8 goes to Lee Thompson-Youngs. Lee started gaining attention when he was only 14.
What made you become an actor?
I did a play when I was a young man, and it was called A Night of Stars and Dreams. I was about 10 years old, and in that play, they had a segment about the greatest dreamers of all time, and I played Martin Luther King Jr. And it was just a really powerful experience for me, and it was life-changing in that I realized that getting on stage and bringing that energy to the people in the audience was what I wanted to do for my career.
Playing the lead in the famous Jet Jackson on the Disney Channel. That show had a unique vibe and was definitely a standout during its time. After it ended, Lee kept his career going with roles in movies like Friday Night Lights and Johnny Tsunami, and later scored a major role on the TV show Rizzoli and Isles. From the outside, it seemed like things were going pretty well for him. But behind the scenes, he was struggling with bipolar disorder and depression. And at 29, Lee died by suicide. The news shocked fans and friends alike, especially because he didn't really show signs of what he was going through. His family later set up a foundation in his honor to help bring more awareness to mental health issues, hoping to help others before it's too late. Next up at number 7, Brad Renfro. Brad was another child actor who came out of the gate swinging.
He can earn the trust of someone really quick. And so much, it takes, I've got to get to know somebody before I'll trust him. And he's a real, he's not like a street kid, but he's really kind of cool. He's the head of the gang. But, people think he's a freak.
At just 11 years old, he starred in The Client, and people instantly saw how talented he was. After that, he kept landing roles and staying busy, But for some reason, he never managed to hit the same high again. Things started to fall apart when he was about 15. He got caught with drugs and began a downward spiral into substance abuse. By the time he was 25, he died from a heroin overdose in his apartment. What makes his story even more heartbreaking is that it came out after his death that he had a young son. So not only did the world lose a talented actor, but a child also lost his father. Even though his life was short, Brad's early performances are a reminder of how much promise he had. Number 6 is Dinah Plato. Most people know her as Kimberly from Diff'rent Strokes, but unfortunately, her story didn't have a happy ending either.
I wasn't expecting you to look so great. So what, you become a full-blown lesbian?
Oh, no, heck no.
Oh, you haven't?
Oh, no. That was just a good friend of mine. It was a complete misunderstanding.
Oh, really? So when she was screaming, "Where is Dana? I want to find her. I need Dana Plato."
Oh, yeah, probably so she could kick my butt again. I mean, that's why I left her.
When the show ended, she had a tough time finding acting jobs that stuck. Trying to keep herself in the spotlight, she got plastic surgery and posed for Playboy, but none of it helped her career. Things kept getting worse. Her accountant allegedly stole most of her money, and then she lost custody of her child. With very few options left, Dana turned to roles in softcore adult films and got caught up in petty crimes. She also battled addiction and alcohol issues. She later said she was clean and only taking prescribed medication, but even so, she died from an overdose at just 34. What adds another layer of sadness is that her co-star, Gary Coleman, also passed away young. It kind of feels like that show carried some sort of tragic shadow with it. These stories aren't just sad, they shine a light on how tough the spotlight can be, especially for kids. A bunch of these young actors were dealing with enormous pressure way before they even knew who they were outside of their roles. It's one thing to grow up in front of cameras, but it's another to navigate the personal struggles that come with that kind of attention. And while a few found ways to cope, many didn't have the support or the tools to handle it all. Their lives remind us that even though fame looks glamorous, it often hides a much heavier reality underneath. That brings us to number 5, Sawyer Sweeten.
TV star Ray Romano is reeling today after the suicide of Raymond cast member Sawyer Sweeten. Sawyer played one of the twin sons on Everybody Loves Raymond. He shot himself on the front porch of his family's home in Texas. He was just 19.
His name might not be instantly familiar, but if you watched Everybody Loves Raymond, you'd recognize him as one of the adorable twins on the show, where Sawyer and his twin brother, Sullivan, joined the sitcom when they were barely more than a year old, acting alongside their real-life sister, Madeline. They pretty much grew up on set. But once the series ended in 2005, Sawyer didn't act much anymore. A full decade later, just before turning 20, Sawyer tragically died by suicide. His on-screen family and fans were heartbroken. They took to social media to express their sorrow and used the moment to remind people how important it is to check in on the ones you love. His story shows how some young stars carry unseen pain for years, long after the cameras stop rolling. Number 4 is Josh Ryan Evans, a performer who never let his dwarfism hold him back.
When Timmy mentions hospital, you say no. But when you say it, it's brilliant!
He entered the acting world at 12 and quickly picked up small roles in films like Baby Geniuses and How the Grinch Stole Christmas. But the role that really made him stand out was Timmy on the soap opera Passions. His character became beloved, earning him 2 Soap Opera Digest Awards and even an Emmy nomination. What's especially heartbreaking is how closely his final performance lined up with his real life. His character was supposed to die and come back as an angel, but Josh passed away from complications related to a congenital heart condition before that storyline could unfold. In a tragic coincidence, the episode that featured Timmy's death aired on the same day that Josh died. He was only 20. Number 3 is Jonathan Brandis, who got his start in entertainment before most kids could even read.
Behind the pool, please.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Please wait for full stop. Bridge.
No contest, he had the best star.
He was modeling by age 4, doing commercials shortly after, and acting by 6. His early career included guest spots on TV shows, But things really took off when he landed roles in the Stephen King It miniseries and seaQuest DSV, a Steven Spielberg-produced show that turned him into a teen idol. But just as quickly as his star rose, it started to fade. His opportunities became fewer and less impactful, and he found himself stuck in a career that no longer excited him. Feeling disappointed and directionless, Jonathan died by suicide at 27. Even though he had a bunch of early success, he struggled with the fear that his best years were already behind him. Number 2 is River Phoenix. River's story is probably one of the most well-known.
River, I'm so happy to be here talking with you today because we have never met. I only know you through your work. I'm a big fan of yours. Normally,
nice meeting you.
We don't start interviews saying we're a big fan. That's supposed to be a no-no. But you have to know that I am. And I especially enjoyed your performance in Running on Empty.
Not just because of how he died, but also because of how much he had already accomplished. In 1993, he was outside the Viper Room, an LA nightclub, when he collapsed and died from a drug overdose. He was only 23, but even at that young age, River had racked up a ton of impressive roles, including his breakout performance in Stand By Me. He wasn't just an actor either. He was also a passionate musician, a dedicated environmentalist, and a lifelong vegan. People who knew him always said he was wise beyond his years and deeply driven by compassion. His death didn't just shock Hollywood. It left behind a lingering feeling of what if? Because if anyone seemed destined to be more than just a star, it was River. And finally, number 1, Corey Haim. A name that defined the 80s for a lot of young fans.
How you doing, Corey?
Good, how you doing, baby?
He's here at Frank & Son Collectible Show, one of our sponsors.
That's right.
And before this interview, Corey, we were talking a little bit about one of my favorite vampire flicks from the 80s, which is Lost Boys.
Thank you.
You were the main dude in it.
That's right.
Could you tell us a little bit of your thoughts of the Tribe, which is the sequel?
Alongside Corey Feldman, he starred in a string of popular films, 7 of them in fact, with The Lost Boys being the most iconic. But behind all the charm and success, Corey was dealing with some incredibly dark experiences. He was sexually abused in Hollywood, and by the time most teens were just getting their learner's permits, Corey had already turned to drugs and alcohol. He tried to reinvent himself later in life, but nothing really clicked. He passed away at 38 due to pneumonia, although years of drug abuse had clearly taken a toll on his health. What hurts most is knowing that by the time he died, he was trying to get his life back on track. It's hard not to wonder what might have been if he'd had just a little more time. So, when you look back at all these stories, one thing becomes painfully clear. Talent and fame don't shield anyone from life's struggles. These young stars had so much going for them, but it wasn't always enough to get them through the challenges they faced. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.